This is part 3 of 4 on the monetary system of the United States of America. Rather, the Council of Foreign Affairs and Trilateral Commissions. If you have not listened to that video, I urge you to do so. Naturally, as the inequality grows, more and more people become desperate. Then they, quantified as the Jews who made this money system the monopoly of control, came up with the word terrorist. Terrorist is an empty term used for anyone who challenges the establishment. This is not to be confused with the fictional Al-Qaeda, which was actually a computer database when the US backed Mujahideen in the 1980s. Next is a quote from Robin Cook, former British Foreign Secretary: "The truth is there is no Islamic army or terror group called Al-Qaeda. And any informed intelligence officer knows this. But there is a propaganda campaign to make the public believe in the presence of an identified enemy. The country behind this propaganda is the US. In 2008, the DoD, or Department of Defense, received $161.8 billion for the supposed global war on terror. Insert my opinion and analogy along with movie reference to Iron Man 3. The Mandarin was the phony face of evil, while behind the scenes nobody knew who the evil really was. According to the Counterterrorism Committee, in 2004, 1,907 people were killed by significant international terrorists. Of that number, 68 were American. Using that number as an average of 68 from the US. It's interesting to note at least twice that number die a year from peanut allergies than by terrorists. So back to the Killian analogy from Iron Man 3, they created and owned the war on supposed terror. The leading cause of death in America is coronary heart disease, killing nearly 450,000 a year. My opinion, way to go. Healthcare advancements, you still can't fix a heart. What wonderful advancements we have made. This is very sad. To put this in perspective, in 2007 the US spent $2.9 billion on researching heart disease and $161.8 billion on supposed terrorism. That is as fictional as the damn money we work like dogs for. Way to go, Jews. Yet 6,600 times the amount that die of terrorism die of CHD, coronary heart disease. And coming from a family that has a history of that, it makes me want to spit in someone's face. This is an insult to human life. In July 2008, the Congress proposed we launch war on Al-Qaeda, the fictional thing stamped on any staged attack on the US. There are currently 1 million people on the US terrorist watch list. These 1 million names have nothing to do with our protection and everything to do with protecting the Jew establishment. Very sad. America was founded as the greatest nation on the planet, then the Jewish parasitic cancer snuck in to destroy the world. All this flag burning, the blacks going nuts, the anti-American BS protesting against America, the LGBT crock of shit, the gays, it's all funded by the US establishment to cause chaos and diversity. The Muslims being here to cause more chaos, it's all a control measure. While these dumb as shit blacks/gays/Muslims/atheists think they are getting equal rights, the Jews are just controlling everyone through the fake fear of terrorism while bleeding everyone dry before their endgame. The true terrorists are not the people who yell Allah Akbar or however it's spelled, people like Timothy McVeigh. Again, spelling, the true terrorists are those people wearing $5,000 suits in big business and in government. Those bought and paid for by Jews, who either are Jews or been completely subdued by them to do everything they say like puppets. So how do we stop the corporatocracy that has so much momentum, without a care of millions slaughtered just so they can steal resources and opium productions for Wall Street? Prior to 1980, Afghanistan produced 0% of the world's opium. After the US/CIA-backed Mujahideen won the Soviet-Afghan War by 1986, they were producing 40% of the world's heroin supply. By 1999 they were producing 80% of the world's supply. Then the Taliban rose to power, and by 2000 they had destroyed most of the opium fields and production dropped from 3,000 plus tons to 185 tons, a 94% reduction. On September 9, 2001, the Afghan invasion plans were on President Bush's desk. Source: NBC News report. U.S. sought Al-Qaeda, White House given plans days before September 11. 2 days after their plan to invade, they had their excuse, the 9/11 thing. Today, opium production is a U.S.-controlled Afghanistan, which now provides more than 90% of the world's heroin, breaks new records nearly every year. Source: Washington Post. Afghanistan opium crop sets record, and UNODC report the opium economy in Afghanistan. May 3, 2006. A headline in the New York Times: The ugly side of free trade, sweatshops in Jordan. My opinion, come on people, this shit is in plain sight hidden, wake up. The 9/11 attack on the trade towers was done by engineers in a controlled demolition made to look like the planes done everything. How do we deal with the Trilateral Association, Council on Foreign Relations, Bilderberg Group, undemocratic groups and others? These groups behind closed doors hold meetings to control, manipulate the monetary, political, social and environmental elements. In order to stop them, first we have to find the true source. They are not the true source. They are just symptoms. My opinion, this is a scary thought. Greed and competition are not the result of a mutable human temperament. Greed and fear of scarcity are in fact being created and amplified. The direct consequence is that we have to fight with each other in order to survive. Quote from Bernard Leiter, founder of the EU currency system. Jacques Fresco is an industrial designer and social engineer for the Venus Project. He wants to help find a sustainable system to help people. The Lusitania to save fuel had the number 4 turbine shut down, which drastically reduced speed from its 26 knots, so it would have difficulty outrunning any hostile ships. All cargo ships got chaperones, yet the Lusitania went on its own directly into the war zone, directly where known German U-boats were. Germany was charged with willful murder of 1,200 people that were sent aboard a luxury cruise ship that went down very quickly, had its turbine shut off and was hit by a U-boat with only one torpedo. No questions were asked about that. Headlines abound said the Germans could not consider themselves civilized, yet a cruise ship cut speed in half, went down from one torpedo very quickly and was in a war zone. Germany blamed completely. Eventually questions were asked after mobs in Germany about why it was unaccompanied and sank so quickly. One torpedo hit the Lusitania, and yet her sister ship managed to get back to port after being hit by 12 or more. Proof exists that an internal explosion is what caused the sinking of the Lusitania. Hence sabotage. The cruise ship was carrying contraband from USA to Britain, shells, weapons and munitions that caused the internal explosion. 1,200 people lost their lives. The world plunged into war because of juice. A forged manifest for the ship was given and accepted by this nation, but the real one was found out at what cost to the world? Yet we still let Jews breathe in our world? They are the evil of the devil. Also, it has been proven the single torpedo not capable of sinking the ship alone hit the exact hold where the contraband weapons US was smuggling to Britain were held. A private memo from the White House from Woody Wilson asked Deputy Secretary Robert Lansing if any contraband was on the Lusitania. He replied practically all her cargo was contraband weapons, munitions. The salvaged although mutilated bodies were destroyed, so no investigations could be made. According to the video, the cover-up was perpetrated by FDR and Winston Churchill, Jewish leaders, and Churchill FDR didn't have the balls to say he was Jewish again, go figure. Captain Turner of the Lusitania was to be the scapegoat. Churchill, not yet PM, agreed and wanted him vigorously indicted. Lord Fisher, another British moron, accused Captain Turner of being bribed and a tyrant and scoundrel and acted contrary. That is what the moron Fisher said. further said he was utterly incompetent or been got to by the Germans. So what I got out of this is 1,200 people on a cruise ship were killed, the 700 that survived their lives ruined, and from World War I on our world has been changed, all because centuries ago Jews were not on the stakes as witches during the witch trials. Jews used their propaganda to say 6 million died in concentration camps when only 3.2 million were known in Europe at the time. They done this. They created the Federal Reserve and central banks to bankrupt the world for their gain. They sank the ship. Churchill was PM and all up in everything. Eric Snowden's family worked for Churchill. FDR was ancestor of a Jew, the longest US president in history until Obama. Yes, I maintain, as I've said before, he'll abolish term limits and be there until he dies, is killed or quits.